Welcome to Shadow Whispers, where nightmares and truths collide, and where fear finds a voice. If I'm going to die, I whispered, I'll die fighting, not waiting. I turned toward the altar, stood tall. The village watched, and I stared back. I should have turned back. Every part of me knew it, but the deeper I had gone, the more I felt like I didn't belong to myself anymore. Behind the altar, hidden behind a curtain of shadow, was a stairwell, cracked, narrow, and cold enough to burn. I didn't hesitate. That's what scared me most. I didn't even pause, like something was guiding my legs while my thoughts screamed to stop. Step by step, the world shifted. The walls tightened around me. The silence thickened. The air changed. It didn't just smell old, it smelled ancient, like rusted iron, wet stone, and the faint sweetness of rotting flowers, not the kind you place on graves, the kind left behind when something crawls out of one. I don't know how long I walked. Time stopped making sense. I think it gave up trying to follow me. Then I reached it, a chamber deep below the village, and the moment I stepped inside, I knew I'd gone too far. The walls were covered in carvings, murals, not paintings, etchings, deep and jagged, as if clawed into the stone by desperate hands. And they told a story. It started slow, symbols, shapes, spirals, then faces appeared, people, the villagers. I recognized them from the houses above, but they were younger here, alive, frightened, desperate. They were kneeling, praying, crying, looking up towards something just out of the frame, something the carvings wouldn't show. I took a step closer, and another. I couldn't stop looking, and then something broke. Not in the wall, not in the floor, in me. I blinked, and the ground wasn't solid anymore. It rippled, the carvings pulsed, the silence screamed. Suddenly, I felt like I was falling, not through space, but through memory, someone else's memory. Or maybe, I tried to breathe, but the air had gone. My lungs filled with whispers. My heart beat in reverse. I felt hands on my back, cold, invisible hands guiding me forward. Then came the hum, low, vibrating in my teeth, like the walls were chanting, like the stone was alive. My vision darkened around the edges. The world flickered like a dying candle, and then I wasn't in the chamber anymore. I was somewhere else, sometime else. And what I saw next wasn't a vision, it was a confession. The second I closed my eyes, I wasn't in the crypt anymore. I was there, in the village, but not the one I found, the one from centuries ago, alive, breathing, and crumbling. The skies were dry, too dry. Rains had stopped for months. The crops rotted in the ground. The streams ran black, and the children cried, with nothing left inside them to cry out. Famine came first, then sickness, then war, not between nations, but between neighbors. People stabbed each other over a bowl of soup. And then the world stopped pretending. The earth cracked, the rivers boiled. One by one, the villages in the valley disappeared, taken by plague, raided by invaders, or devoured by something they couldn't name. But this village, it survived, because it was cursed with something more dangerous than death, hope. They begged their priest, the church father, to call upon God, and he did. He healed, he protected, he prayed, he gave every breath he had to save them. Even when the fever took his own children, he never stopped. I watched him, his robes torn, hands shaking, still placing his fingers to the forehead of the dying, still whispering, God is with you. And then they turned on him. It only takes one whisper to rot a soul, and the whisper came from a man I wish I could forget. He walked into the village, wearing a black coat stitched with ash, eyes like dried blood, voice like poison wrapped in honey. He promised peace, immortality, a way to save the village forever. No more hunger, no more death. All they had to do was let go of their faith. They called him a prophet. The father called him a liar. So they tied the father to a pole, and when his wife and sons tried to stop them, they bound them too, and that was the beginning of the end. I watched it all, like a ghost, like a witness to the end of the world. On the first day, they gathered things, not holy things, bones, blood, oil scraped from the skin of the dead. They smeared symbols in ash and animal fat. At night, they chanted, not in prayer, but in bargain, words that didn't belong in any language, words that scratched inside my skull as I heard them. On the second day, they built the ritual ground, 3 thrones, each carved for a different master, one for the forest spirits, covered in roots and twisted bark, one for the ancient god, etched in circles and horns. On the third night, they gathered, their faces painted, their eyes gone, their humanity already slipping. They called to the spirits of the forest, and the wind answered. Trees cracked, animals screamed, a shadow moved through the woods, and every torch went out, all at once. On the 4th day, they summoned the pagan god. He came in a silence that crushed the air. The clouds turned bronze, the earth pulsed, and every single villager fell to their knees. On the 5th, they invited the demon king. They didn't speak, they offered. They burned one of their own, an old man, blind and mute, as a sacrifice, and the fire laughed, and on the 6th day they gave themselves. I heard them chant it, over and over, until their voices bled into one. We entrust our souls, we entrust our souls, we are yours. The sky tore open, the throne shook, the fire rose 20 feet high, and something answered from below, and then the father escaped. He broke his bindings, took his family. He gave them a leather-bound book, the very one I found, and told them to run, told them to never come back, told them he was going to stop it. They ran. The borders of the village vanished behind them, and the father went back. He begged the villagers to stop, but the ritual had already finished. The man in black smiled and ordered them to seal the father inside the church. Let him die where he once prayed. That night, the villagers slept like kings, dreaming of peace. But when the sun rose, every child in the village was gone. No footsteps, no cries, no bodies, just silence and beds that were never slept in again. They ran to the church, but the father was gone. His body sat at the altar, eyes closed, one finger pointing to a painting, a face on the wall. A face they'd never seen before. My face. They turned to the man in black, and he said only one thing. Nothing will return. Nothing will return. And he was right. They never died, but they never lived again. The forest spirits bound their souls to the land. The pagan god reshaped their bodies into something unrecognizable, and the demon king kept their names in his mouth. One by one, they faded from human eyes, no longer villagers, no longer human, but prisoners, and I saw it all like it was happening again and again and again, until suddenly I was back in the crypt, on the ground, sobbing. Every nerve in my body screamed, my head felt cracked open, and I understood I wasn't here by accident. I don't remember how long I lay there. Maybe minutes, maybe centuries, but when I opened my eyes, I was back in the ruins, still on my knees, still shaking, but something inside me had shifted. I stood barely and moved deeper into the crypt, drawn by something I couldn't name. Then I saw it, a stone tablet, tall, ancient, etched from top to bottom with names. It took me a moment to realize what I was looking at. It wasn't just a memorial, it was a family tree, the bloodline of the village, and halfway down the list, there it was. My name, my real name, my surname, spelled in an older tongue, but unmistakable. My fingers hovered over it, not carved like the others, but burned into the stone, like it had always been there, just waiting for me to arrive. That's when I knew this village hadn't just cursed its own. It had called for one of us. It had called for me. That photograph on the altar, that wasn't a warning. It wasn't a message. It was a placeholder. I wasn't supposed to be the next victim. I was supposed to be the next piece, or maybe the final one. Something pulled me upward, not a voice, not a sound, just a knowing. My legs moved on their own, guiding me back through the crumbling halls, back to the church, back to where he died. The church father, the man in the visions, the one who looked like me. I found the place where he took his last breath, still marked with soot and candle wax, and in the corner, beneath a broken pew, something glinted. A necklace, silver, worn, but humming with warmth. The moment I touched it, a whisper curled into my ear like steam. Wear it. I placed it around my neck, and the world changed. I saw him, standing in the shadows of the altar, watching me. The church father, my ancestor. He didn't speak, but I understood him, not with words, but with something deeper, like memory that had never been mine. He guided me to a hidden chamber, sealed behind layers of stone and holy symbols, and inside was everything I needed. A robe, old in design, but untouched by time, pure white, still carrying the scent of incense and dried roses, a vial of water that shimmered like silver in moonlight, a ring, carved from bone and etched with protective runes, and a dagger, unlike anything I've ever seen. Black steel, a handle of twisted ivory, its blade pulsed with red veins, like it was alive, like it had killed things that don't die. When I put them on, something opened inside me, and then I saw them, the villagers, but not as they once were, not human, not spirit, something in between. Their bodies were thin, warped, transparent, their faces stretched, their eyes wide and locked in a permanent plea, not begging for mercy, but for freedom. They gathered around me, hundreds of them, men, women, children, all silent, all still, but their thoughts poured into me, not through words, but through the necklace. They showed me the truth, how they never left, how they still eat, sleep, walk, but without bodies, how their souls are bound to this village like flies inside amber. They told me the beds I found still warm, the meals still fresh, they were theirs. They live in a loop in the shadow of what was, and I was the only one who could stop it. But then the bell rang, loud, piercing, a sound like the earth screaming, and as it echoed, the ones closest to me caught fire. Their mouths opened in silent agony, their forms twisted in flame, and one by one, they vanished. The others scattered, terrified, and I was alone again. The bell was still ringing, not like before, not distant, not hidden behind mist. It was loud now, relentless, as if it was calling me. I stepped out of the church and looked up. There he was, that figure in the bell tower, the one I saw in the photo, the one I saw when I first arrived. He was still there, tall, unmoving, watching. So I walked. I don't remember deciding to. My body just moved, like the wind was pushing me from behind. The steps up the tower were narrow, rotting. Each one creaked under my boots like it didn't want me to pass. And yet, I climbed. One floor, then two, then three, until I reached the top. He stood by the bell, tall, draped in robes that looked older than the village itself. His face hidden in shadows, his eyes not eyes at all, just glowing orbs of red, like something that had stared at the sun for too long and then decided to become it. I took a step forward and asked, quietly, "Who are you?" His head tilted slightly. Then he replied, voice low, guttural, echoing without sound, "The Lord." I felt something in me twist, like my spine wanted to collapse. I whispered again, "What are you?" He smiled, a grin so wide it should have torn his face in half. "I am the God." I felt it. In that moment, the weight of centuries, all of it, coming from him. And then, a memory hit me like lightning. The man in the ritual, The black magician, the one who promised immortality. It was him. His face hadn't aged a day. I staggered back. My chest felt tight, like he was inside my lungs, pressing from within. He stepped forward, slow, calm, confident. "What do you think you are?" he asked. "A savior? A priest? A sacrifice? You are nothing. A crack in a story already written." His laughter followed, and with it, the village laughed too. Voices from nowhere, mocking, echoing. In my head, under my skin, "You can bow now," he said. "Give up your soul, and I'll give you peace. No pain, no death, no memory." He kept coming, closer, step by step, and the tower seemed to shrink with every breath. The sky outside darkened, the mist pulsed, and shadows danced around us like they were alive. Then, I remembered the dagger. I pulled it from my belt, fast, instinctive, and the necklace around my neck began to burn with light. The magician stopped. For the first time, he looked afraid. I took a step forward. The light from the necklace flared, white hot, blinding. He hissed. Smoke poured from beneath his robes. His skin cracked like glass, and then he vanished in a swarm of black wings and screaming shadows. I stood there alone in the bell tower, heart pounding, and below I saw them, the villagers, all of them, standing still, silent, waiting. And as I descended the stairs, they parted. One by one, they stepped aside, forming a path. Their eyes no longer filled with fear, but hope. They were taking me somewhere, to the place where it all began. They didn't speak, they didn't blink. They just watched me descend the tower like I had become something else. Their faces weren't entirely human anymore, stretched, translucent, flickering like old candlelight, but their eyes, they were clearer than they'd ever been, and they moved aside, one by one, creating a narrow path through the mist. I walked between them, slowly. Each step forward felt like walking through history, through judgment. They led me to the center of the village, to the place I had seen in visions, the place where they gave everything away, and it was still there. The fire pit, still burning, the thrones blackened, twisted, covered in vines and ash, the earth cracked, symbols burned into the stones beneath my feet. Time hadn't touched it. I didn't need to be told what this was. This was the altar of the pact, the heart of the curse, and the only place it could be broken. But I didn't know how, not yet, so I went back to the church, back to the place where the father had died. I tore through every shelf, every book, every page left to rot in that old chapel, and then I found it. A book bound in dry skin, heavy, silent, and angry. Inside were pages of the original ritual, and at the very end, a passage written by the church father himself. To undo what was done, one must bleed into fire, one must sever the throne, one must burn the name they carry before the bell tolls again. The necklace burned hot against my skin, the dagger pulsed in my palm. I didn't just understand, I felt it. The village wasn't waiting for someone to save it, it was waiting for someone to finish it. I stepped into the circle, alone, but not helpless. The thrones stood like giants, waiting, judging. The fire hissed in the center, old and alive, like it knew exactly what I had come to do. I raised the dagger, the same one soaked in the bloodline of the church father, and pressed it into my palm. My blood spilled into the flames, and the fire screamed. It rose high and white, the earth split, and the air went silent, like the world was holding its breath. Then they came. First, the forest spirits, twisted silhouettes of bark and smoke. They clawed toward me through the flames, their mouths moving in languages older than time. I raised the bone ring. It lit up like a star, and the spirits howled, twisting violently, before vanishing like ash in the wind. Next, the pagan god. It emerged from the mist, tall, horned, towering over everything. Its eyes like ancient suns. It stared into me, as if weighing the worth of my soul. I didn't speak. I simply clutched the necklace and refused. The light from it burst, white, pure, final. The god recoiled, crumbled, and blew away like smoke ripped from flesh. And then he came. The black magician, not a vision, not a memory, but real and furious. His robes crackled with dark flame, his eyes still glowing with the same hatred I'd seen in every dream. He stepped into the circle like it belonged to him. "So you made it this far," he hissed. "He bled for them, prayed for them, died for them, and now you're ready to do the same." I didn't answer. I just raised the dagger. "You fool," he spat. "You're not ending anything. You're finishing what I started. You think you're a savior, you're the final lock, you're the door." His hands rose, and the shadows surged. The fire twisted, roared, and threw me backward. I hit the stone hard. The dagger flew from my hand. He stalked toward me, slowly, smiling, dragging a jagged blade behind him, one made from bone, smoke, and screams. Every step echoed like a bell tolling in reverse. We fought. Steel clashed with rot. Light crashed against shadow. He struck fast, ancient, brutal, precise. I was bleeding, broken, but not backing down. "You carry his blood," he hissed, "but not his strength." "No," I whispered, "but I carry his will." I lunged, and I drove the dagger into his chest, deep. He froze, smoke pouring from his mouth, eyes wide, body trembling, and then he laughed. And that's when I felt it. The third throne, the one untouched, began to glow. The fire turned black, the ground cracked, the magician's body rose, lifted by chains of smoke and flame. His voice changed, deeper, two voices in one. "You thought this was about you," he said. "I was only the door. Now meet the one who answered." The demon king had come, through him, fused into him. His body warped, bones cracked outward, face splitting open, horns, fangs, eyes like bleeding fire, and he charged. I barely blocked the first strike. His blade met mine, and I felt my arm shatter from the force. He didn't fight like a man anymore. He fought like rage given form, like a god that never wanted to be worshipped, only feared. I was thrown across the ritual stones. My breath left me. Blood pooled beneath me. "This is your reward," he growled. "You broke the seal. Now you carry it. You are the end, and you will die alone." But he was wrong. I crawled, fingers broken, lungs screaming, eyes blind from blood. I found the dagger, I found the seal, and as he raised his blade to finish me, I struck, not into him, but into the ground beneath the demon's throne, straight through the final seal. The light that burst from the earth wasn't white, it was gold. The demon screamed, no longer through the magician, but as itself, writhing, roaring, unraveling. Their forms split, shadow from flesh, spirit from body, and both were torn apart in a spiral of light and ash. And then, silence. The thrones cracked. The fire pit exploded upward. The symbols burned away. The bell, the cursed bell that started it all, shattered into dust, and the village began to fall apart. I don't remember hitting the ground. The fire was gone. The circle had vanished. The thrones, nothing more than splinters and bones. The mist was rising, fast, heavy, like it had been waiting not to curse, but to bury. The earth cracked beneath me, stone gave way to dust, and somewhere in the distance, I heard the bell one last time, but now it sounded like it was crying. The village was finally dying. I tried to move, but my body refused. I was broken, bleeding, a hollow shell filled with heat and pain. And then everything went dark. I don't know how long I was out. Could have been seconds, could have been centuries. All I remember is the sound, not a scream, not the wind, but footsteps, soft, heavy, steady, and a voice, not loud, but warm, familiar. "There you are, boy." I opened my eyes, and standing above me was Dacian. His cloak was worn, his face older than I remembered, but his eyes still carried that same quiet knowing. He smiled, lifted me like I weighed nothing, and slung me over his shoulder. "Told you not to go," he said softly, "but I suppose someone had to." and as the village collapsed behind us, stone by stone, soul by soul, he carried me back into the mist. The ground fell away, the trees closed in, and behind us, the cursed land finally disappeared. Forever. I woke up in my bed. The ceiling fan spun slow. The morning light spilled through the curtains. Everything smelled like home, familiar, safe. I sat up, my mouth dry, my hands trembling. Was it a dream, a vision, a descent into madness? I stumbled to the mirror, looked into my own eyes. They were still mine, but something behind them wasn't. I moved like a ghost through the house. Every step felt wrong, like I'd returned to the right world, but left something vital behind. I poured a glass of water, raised it to my lips, and winced. A sharp pain cut across my ribs. I lifted my shirt, scars, real, exactly where the magician had struck me. My chest went cold. I dropped the glass. It shattered on the tiles. And then, the bell, far away, soft, but real. I turned toward the sound, froze. The clock on the wall read 3:17 a.m. I reached for my neck, just to be sure, just to prove it was all in my head. And I felt it, the necklace, still there, still warm. And then I heard it, not the bell, not the wind, but a whisper, so close it felt like it came from inside me. I left the village, but I don't think it ever left me. Thank you for watching Shadow Whispers, where fear always finds a voice. Join us, subscribe now, and step into the shadows. I am Mr. Zaidi, your Detective Z, who walks in darkness and runs behind death. This is Shadow Whispers.